Okay, I'd now like to touch on consideration around the estuaries for our various rivers in the tank catchments. So one of them is the Ahuriri, and then the other one, of course, is Waitangi. So Waitangi, it gets input from the Ngāruroro, the Tūtai Kuri, and also the Karamu Clive. And then, of course, you're getting all the nutrients and sediments from 3 major river systems, all accumulating in one relatively small area. So from the estuaries, they're outside of the tank plan, the scope of the tank plan change. But then things that happen within the tank catchments, they all contribute to the estuarine environments. So one of the things that we were looking at was, should there be a concurrent plan change to the coastal environment plan? Because the coastal environment plan is what regulates activities and effects within our estuaries. That hasn't occurred. So what we may be facing is where the things that get regulated through the tank then limit what can be achieved through a future plan change to the coastal environment plan. There are a couple of things that are very important here in terms of the coastal environment plan regulates a marginal strip along the land, so along the edges, I guess, of the tank catchments, and there are water quantity issues that or concerns along that coastal margin. So we need to, when we are looking at having a total allocation limit for the Heretaunga Plains aquifer system, we probably need to be considering, okay, we can manage under the tank plan what is taken out of the aquifer, excuse me, out of the aquifer from the within the tank catchments, but not within that narrow marginal strip. I know that there's some water takes happening out around Napier City. I'm not too sure whether the port takes water for their functions. Napier City's wells, whether any of those are within the coastal environment area, so therefore subject to the coastal environment plan and not the tank plan. So we need to be very careful about that. Stormwater as well, even though it's generated within the tank areas, it discharges to the estuaries, Ahuriri estuary, Waitangi estuary, and to the ocean. So the effects are generated within the area of the tank plan change, but then the effects are, the discharges actually occur within the coastal environment, so outside of the scope of the tank plan change. And the estuaries are very dynamic. They are in terms of biodiversity, in terms of fish species and interaction. There's a lot of energy generated at the interface of the rohe moana and the freshwater, landward freshwater environments. And then of course you have that coastal, that influx of coastal tidal influence as well. So ultimately our preference was, we were assured that there would be a concurrent plan change occurring with both the coastal environment plan and the regional resource management plan, but that hasn't happened. We're stuck with what we've got, I guess, but The other element of the coastal environment is that we also have Plan Change 7 that has already been notified and already had submissions to it. And so Plan Change 7, it was supposed to be a outstanding freshwater body plan change, which then brings into question the nomenclature, the grammar and stuff that's been used in Plan Change 7, because rather than calling the outstanding freshwater bodies, calling them by that name, Council has chosen to call them outstanding water bodies. That does two things. It takes away the provenance or the higher level regulation and direction given by the National Policy Statement for Freshwater Management. And in there it says that you need to, one of the things within the NPS for freshwater management is that is about the protection of outstanding freshwater bodies. So if we are now calling them through the Plan Change 7, if we're now going to call them outstanding water bodies, perhaps that dilutes the effectiveness of the NPS in terms of applying to these outstanding freshwater bodies. While I'm on that subject too, outstanding water bodies within the coastal environment, that's fine if they are estuaries, of course, because they are not freshwater bodies in their own right. So we can call them outstanding water bodies, but I think there needs to be a degree of separation in policy and planning where the outstanding freshwater body sits separate from the outstanding water bodies within the coastal environment. Through environmental consent order, there was an agreement between Ngāti Kahungunu Iwi Incorporated and Hawke's Bay Regional Council that an outstanding freshwater body plan change would occur before the tank, and the way it's been done is slightly separate or not quite compliant with that environmental court consent order. There's a little bit of concern there around how does the coastal environment plan, Plan Change 7 and Plan Change 9, which is a tank plan change, how do they all work in together? We have to be very careful with the tank plan change that it doesn't then restrict or limit the effectiveness of what we can do with the coastal environment plan and with the outstanding water bodies plan change. Because if some things get by in the tank plan that we don't agree with, or that are sort of not quite supportive of our tikanga Māori issues and concerns, well then we may not be able to leverage opportunities for them within these other plan change processes. The other thing of concern as well is that the Heretaunga aquifer goes into under the land, goes into the coastal environment. So we can regulate what happens with the aquifer within the landward margin, but the areas of the aquifer that then extend outside into the jurisdiction, I guess, of the coastal environment plan, they need to be consistent with what is already in the coastal environment plan. So I think it's in policy or objective 11.1 in the coastal environment plan. It states no degradation of the Heretaunga Plains aquifer system. And then in proposed Plan Change 9, or the tank plan change, where we had a similar objective applying to the Heretaunga Plains aquifer system, Council has chosen to delete that provision from applying within the tank. So there's a slight weakening of leverage around protection of the aquifer. And they've done that for their own reasons, of course, but I think it would be helpful if we could get that provision reinstated so that protection of the aquifer, protection of the water quality in the aquifer is upheld. This has been a central theme of all regional councils planning up until about 5 or 6 years ago. So when the HPUD study, the Heretaunga Plains Urban Development Strategy, that came up with a similar approach, I guess, around protecting the Heretaunga Plains aquifer system. And it seems a bit odd that the tank plan change is seeking to weaken that. So we just need to watch that space to make sure that that protection for the aquifer is maintained through our advocacy and through our submissions.